Good afternoon. I'm Staff Sergeant Jacobson. I'm going to cover M4 fundamentals. We're going to start with loading a magazine. So I'm using snap caps since I'm in the basement of my house. We'll use live ammo obviously in the range. So you're going to take the round. You're going to follow the magazine follower right, pointing in towards the bad guys. On rifle mags, you just pop them right over the top and they go in there. At the end of it, I always like to give it a bump back, and it causes all the bolts to seat towards the back, and it's less likely to get a failure when loading the ammunition into the rifle. Alright, now that we've loaded our magazine, right, we need to load the weapon system. So we don't load a weapon until you're ready to do work or you're on a range, anything like that, till you're cleared to load. Once it's loaded, we always keep it pointing in a safe direction. The weapon's always on safe. Your rifles, it's only going to be on this side. Mine is an ambidextrous since I'm a lefty. So make sure weapon's on safe. We're going to lock the bolt to the rear. You do that by pressing your bolt catch and then grabbing your charging handle on this side for your rifles, and it'll lock to the rear. If you look, bolt's now locked to the rear. Take your magazine while pointing the weapon in a safe direction. Seat it all the way in. I always give it a smack to make sure it seats. And you can do one of two ways. You can press your bolt, lock, release, or you can just pull back the charging handle and let go. I normally hit my bolt release. So press my little button, bolt seated forward. So a little pro tip here, anytime you load a weapon and you're gonna do work, you should always verify that it's actually loaded, right? So I pull back on my rifle or my charging handle just a little bit. I make sure I can see ammunition in my chamber, which I can. I can see the red for the dummy rounds. Let go, hit forward a little bit on the forward assist, and that's called a press check. So the weapon's loaded, weapon's on safe. I'm good and ready to work, right? So we're gonna make sure that now that the weapon's loaded, weapon's always in a safe direction. Normally if it's slung, it's down. All right, so weapon's loaded. It's time to unload it, right? First thing is weapon's on safe. We're gonna drop the magazine from the rifle, pressing the mag release button. Again, we're always keeping it pointed in a safe direction. The weapon is hot. So pressing the release, magazine's out. It's got still ammo in it. So now I gotta clear the weapon. So while keeping the weapon pointed in a safe direction, can't stress that enough, you're going to pull the charging handle back. You're going to observe the bullet flying out. And while we do that, we're also going to hit our bolt catch to lock the bolt to the rear. So I'm holding it, the bolt catch on the side you can't see, pulling the charging handle to the rear. I observe the bullet flying out. I release it, make sure it's locked. Now I observe down my chamber, there's no ammunition. And I observe down the mag well, there's no ammunition. The weapon is clear, right? So now you can leave it bolt locked to the rear if you're going to load it in a little bit. Otherwise, I normally drop my bolt back forward and the weapon's clear. Obviously, when you're on a range, they might give you commands. Lock the bolt to the rear and leave it there. Follow their commands on what they tell you. It's important to make sure that you drop the magazine first. Otherwise, you're just going to load more ammo in. And then you're going to observe the ammunition flying out of the chamber, and then you're going to observe the chamber and the mag well to make sure there is no ammunition present. Alright, so let's talk about fundamentals, right? So, weapon's clear, by the way, no ammunition in it. So we're going to shoot, right? So when you come up on the target, when your weapon's down, weapon's on safe. When you come up, you automatically transition to weapon on fire. Now I'm shooting left-handed. For you righties, all the weird ones in the group, just kidding. You're going to be over on this side. Your thumb is going to be on your safety. So your weapon's on safe because you're down. You're going to come up. You're going to flip the weapon to fire. You're going to have just the tip of your finger on the trigger, okay? You're going to get your breathing in check. And by that I mean the natural lull. So you inhale, exhale, and after exhale, there's a natural lull. You can extend it like 3 to 5 seconds naturally. And you're going to slowly squeeze the trigger. Now that weapon's going to go bang with ammunition in it, right? So I'm going to simulate that. And the trigger's still held to the rear because we're doing trigger reset. I'm slowly releasing the trigger. I heard the click, I felt the click. I stop releasing at that point. What this does is it puts me on my wall of my trigger. So when I squeeze the trigger again, it goes instantly. Like that. What that does is it lets me follow my shots up, and it gives you less time to basically screw your trigger pull up. You're going to do that all the way through, right? You're breathing in, out, hit the lull, extend it for a second or two, slowly squeeze the trigger. You're going to hold the trigger back, the weapon's going to cycle, and then you're going to release the trigger slowly. You'll feel a click, you'll hear a click. It's the sear resetting, and then you pull the trigger again. You'll get better shot placement and better follow-up shots if you do trigger reset. Yes, so with your placement of your body, usually you want your buttstock in the pocket, but that's not always an option with body armor on. So usually I drive mine right on my post to where my armor sits, which I should throw it on, but not. So you're gonna, for me, I point shoot. So I take my thumb, I'm gonna do it left-handed, sorry guys. I take my thumb and I put it on the end of my gun, and what it does is it lets me point my thumb at the target and engage quicker without necessarily aiming. It sits right on my post and I punch straight out. They used to teach you to lean forward. It's not such push so hard now. Now it's almost erect up. You're gonna point your thumb at the target, flip the weapon to fire, and engage. And then as you go, you're gonna get your sight picture on the target with a little bit better, but your initial shot, it's almost pointing. There's nothing wrong with to do it the way you guys have always been taught, to grab the mag well, or to grab up here on a grip, or to grab up here. I would say whatever you're comfortable and stable with is the way you should shoot. Cadams dudes are cover shooting off a cover and around cover. We don't need to do that. But I think the biggest thing is getting comfortable, right? Getting it in your shoulder pocket or your post. Getting your breathing in check. I can't stress that enough. And then with your breathing in check, good trigger control, right? The tip of your finger, slowly squeeze. It should almost scare you. Hold it back to the rear. The weapon cycles. Slowly release till you feel it engage again. And then leave it there and pull the trigger when you're ready to shoot again. Sight picture, I can't really cover with you. But basically you put the little sight in the middle of the circle on the target and send it. They'll cover that in Cadams before we shoot. Alright, so we're going to cover failure to fire, right? Your immediate and then your remedial action. So your immediate action, right? My weapon's loaded with blanks, or dummies I should say, sorry, dummy rounds. So it's not going to go boom, which is actually what we want in this situation. So you draw up, you fire, click, I got nothing, oh crap. So I release my trigger, slap the magazine, pull the charging handle to the rear, observing the bullet flying out, release my charging handle, squeeze my trigger. That would be your immediate action. So again, slap, because my weapon didn't fire, pull the charging handle to the rear, observing a round flying out, release the charging handle, squeeze the trigger. Okay, that's your immediate action. Your remedial action is to drop the magazine because you probably have a failure, lock the bolt to the rear, grab another magazine, throw it in, drop the bolt, and engage. Okay? Alright guys, we're going to go through disassembling, cleaning, kind of looks like a quick what you do to clean, and reassemble. This is about the best camera angle I could find that works, so hopefully it does good for you guys. Excuse me. So we're going to start off by clearing the weapon, right? So we're going to remove the magazine. We're going to lock the bolt to the rear using the bolt catch to catch it. So you're going to press and hold that while grabbing your charging handle right here and pulling back to the rear. Alright, so as you see, the bolt is caught to the rear. We're going to look down the chamber again, and we're going to look down the mag well. Since it's clear, we're going to drop the bolt by pressing the bolt release So now the bolt's forward and you can disassemble the weapon, you know it's clear. We're going to start doing that by taking or pressing the rear takedown pin up. So that's up. And then you can kind of spread that guy in half if you need to, but I normally pop the front takedown pin as well. So now you got two pieces. It's easier to remove your sling so you don't get all tangled. I have a QD on the back of it, so we'll just pop that off. So let's just pull the rest of the bottom apart, right, or the lower. So you're going to have a buffer retaining pin right here, which is this guy right there. You're going to press that with your finger or something, right? And then it's going to pop out, so I should warn you ahead of time. It's spring loaded. Keep your thumb like I did on it. Once it starts to go, you can kind of just wiggle it out. So this is going to go in two pieces, your buffer and your buffer spring. All right, so something I watch a lot of people mess up. This should never smack this. Okay, so this is your fire, or this is your hammer, and this is your bolt catch. This hit and this breaks it. So to get it up, you're going to put the weapon to fire because it should have been unsafe, and you're going to make sure that you keep your thumb or a finger over this. Careful that you don't lose control because it will pinch your finger. You're going to squeeze the trigger and let it and ride it up. That'll keep it from smacking this with force and breaking it. Okay. Now you can clean in down in here, right, with like a GP brush or something like that. I normally put a little piece of cloth over the edge of it, and I'll hit down in here like that. You can normally take a rag or whatever, your finger, and you normally can run back in here and clean in here. And normally I will pop that guy back down and I'll clean the top and clean over here. I normally work this guy up and I'll clean around in here and then clean in the mag well. Yeah, this is my rifle and it's very dirty. I shoot suppressed, so this thing's always dirty. So your lower is now broke apart, and I kind of went through the quick of what to wipe down and clean. All right, so for your upper, you still have your bolt carrier group and everything attached. So you carefully pull in your charging handle. Don't yank it out really hard, otherwise you might send your bolt carrier group flying. So you're going to pull this back enough to where you can get your bolt carrier group out. So this is a bolt carrier group, okay? And then you're going to take your charging handle out. Mine's a little different than your guys's will be. Mine has holes in it to vent some of the carbon away from my face. As you look at that, let's see if I can get it. Right there, excuse me, the flashlight was in my mouth. Right where I was pointing to is like grooves. Those grooves line up with these grooves right here, okay? They have to line up to get that in and out is what you're doing there. So you pull the charging handle, the bolt carrier group out, and your upper is pretty much disassembled as far as you guys are ever going to break it down. So on the upper assembly, you're going to clean just in where the bolt carrier group was. Try to get underneath the gas tube as best you can. There's some carbon that's going to build up in there. And then you're going to have to get into your chamber. See that star looking guy? It's called the star chamber there that I'm trying to shine the light on for you. You're going to try to get in there and you're going to try to clean it. It's a pain in the butt. What that does is that is where your bolt locks in, and when the weapon fires, it doesn't let anything come back at you right away. So you're going to get the best you can in there. I usually use a GP brush and a thing of cloth or whatever. I use my thumb, or my pinky I should say, and I try to work that same cloth in there. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to hit the actual whole barrel assembly, okay? You should never go from the muzzle device in, which this is a suppressor, but the muzzle device is over here. You should always go from the chamber end so you don't jack the crown up on the barrel. which affects accuracy. So that's your upper. Everyone's cleaned one before. Holler at me if you have any questions on it. So as we break down our bolt carrier group, I like to keep something like this, and it doesn't matter what, some sort of dish to contain all your loose pieces. These are easy to lose, and it sucks explaining to the armor why you lost something. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the firing pin retaining pin out. I normally use a pick, but you can use whatever you need to get it out. Just try not to bend it up. All right, and then your firing pin will come loose. Normally it just takes a smack or two. And that's your firing pin. Like I said, my gun's dirty. It is what it is. I'll clean it eventually. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to pull the cam pin, okay, which is this guy. As it's sitting right now, it will not come out. So what you have to do is you have to rotate it like that and then pull it straight up and out. Next, the bolt will come out of the bolt carrier group. That's your bolt. So things we're doing on the bolt here that need to be cleaned is back here, which you can see. It is dirty on mine back there. Cleaning your hole here the best you can. Clean your bolt face the best you can. If you want to, you can pull your extractor apart, but be really careful. It's spring loaded. So keep a thumb or something on the back side of it. Press in. Take a punch. Don't lose this piece. It's easy to lose. And you can drive the pin out, okay? And you put it in this nice tray that you got so you don't lose it. You will. And then you can pull your extractor out. Now, careful. It is spring loaded on the back side, and that spring right there will come flying off if you're not careful. So you can clean in here the best of your ability and clean up on top of here. And then this groove right there, all right, is what grabs the case here. Is what grabs the lip of your bullet, all right? That's what grabs, just like that. So I always try to make sure that's clean so it can grab. So once you've cleaned all that, you're going to press back down on it to get that hole. Let's see if I can get a light on it. There you go. You can kind of see it. Get that hole to line up. Then you're going to take this pin that you didn't lose because you put it in a safe place. You're going to put it back in there. You're just going to make sure it's flush and doesn't stick out either side. So your bolts back together. The other thing to look at is if you see, let's see if I can get it. You see these gaps right there, and right there. So these gaps are important to not be on top of each other. Those are gas rings. There's 3 of them. And if you have them all the holes lined up, you can have a problem with not enough gas in your system. So you want to make sure they're all spread out before you put it back together. All right, so the bolt carrier group, or the bolt carrier, you're going to just kind of clean wherever you can, right? In here, down in here, down in this area as well. This is your gas key on the carrier. You can try to clean in there with like a Q-tip or something to the best of your ability. A lot of carbon likes to build up in this spot. Everyone forgets about it down in here. Never bad to clean right there. Your firing pin, just get all the nasty that you see on mine off. This thing is bad. So get all that off and you'll be good to go. It should all be shiny. Just wipe down your cam pin and wipe down your firing pin retaining pin. All right, so to reassemble, we're going to start off with making sure our gas rings are not in line with each other, which they're not. Then we're going to take our bolt and put it into a bolt carrier. Let's see if I can get this on video. You probably can't tell, but there's like little slanted grooves. Actually, there's slanted grooves on this bolt, if you can kind of see, versus that side where there's not. You need to have that side facing out to you without the slants in it to get the cam pin to go in. Pretty simple. If it doesn't go, spin it. It'll go the other way. So you're going to put that in. You're going to line up that hole in that so you can get your cam pin back in. You're going to have to rotate it so it's like locked underneath the gas key like you pulled it out originally, or before you pulled it out, so the firing pin will go through it. Otherwise, the firing pin can't pass through. You're going to take your firing pin. I normally just kind of cover the bolt carrier group, drop her in, and just kind of work it through. There you go. She drops in. And then you're going to take your firing pin, retaining pin. You're going to put it on the big, huge side that has a gap. And you're going to work it in there. These don't always work the easiest. Your guys' rifles will probably go easier than mine. Believe it or not, mine get fired more than your M4s. All right. So the bolt carrier group together is together. One of the things I always check is to make sure my gas rings aren't fried. Excuse me. I set my bolt up with it pulled all the way out, right? You have to have this pulled all the way so your cam pin is in line with your gas key. Otherwise, it won't go in your weapon. But you're going to pull it all the way out, and you're going to set it up on the end of the bolt. Helps when you go straight on wood. There we go. If it didn't fall down, then like straight onto itself like that, your gas rings are good. If it falls, as soon as you set it down like that, then your gas rings are probably fried, and you need to tell the armorer so they can be replaced. Alrighty, so this guy, the charging handle, you just wipe down the top, wipe down the inside, get the carbon off. Same with your spring. They say not to put oil on your springs. I always put a little tiny coat on there, but very minimal. And the buffer, the same thing. Wipe down your buffer. With anything, I'm a fan of very light lubrication. So I put a really light, like sheen of CLP is what they'll give you. I use other stuff over my bolt carrier group, over my charging handle. Very extremely light over the spring. I mean, barely any. And then anywhere where there's like metal on metal contact. So I'll have a light coat inside here. And it kind of just helps everything run a little smoother. You'll notice if you've over-oiled your weapon, when you fire, you get blasted in the face with the lube, and it sucks. So don't do that. All right, we're going to reassemble. So let's start with our lower. Right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our spring back in, our buffer tube. And then as it kind of gets towards the end, I'm going to stop. Going to take my buffer. I'm going to put it in. Now, remember, spring loaded. Careful, I'm going to take my thumb. It should just pop over the buffer tube retention pin, okay? I make sure that if you forgot to, I put my hammer down. I normally put my weapon back on safe so I don't accidentally send it flying against the bolt catch, which is how you damage it. And your lower is good. To put your upper back together, you're gonna have to get those little grooves that you kind of see the like the airs hanging off the side. You got to get them lined up on the inside where they fall in, so it should fall down in its track. If it didn't, just kind of look at it. You can visually see what I'm talking about. Once it's in there, you're going to make sure the bolt's fully extended so the cam pin's in line with the gas key. And you're going to have the charging handle out enough to where the gas key will ride in the charging handle, and you're going to push it in together. And if it goes all the way in, you're good to go. So then you're going to make sure both your takedown pins are still out, right? We're going to put them down in together. You can do one at a time. I normally just do both. I push it all in together, down and back, to kind of take the spring out of the buffer spring, and I put them together. All right. So now that she is all the way together, we need to do a functions check. Start off by placing the weapon on safe. If it's not already on safe, we pull the trigger. Nothing should happen. You flip the weapon to fire, which again, you guys will be only on this side. You flip it to fire. You squeeze the trigger, and it should go bang, or not bang, but it should click, right, like it did. So you're going to keep holding the trigger, and you're going to pull the charging handle to the rear and let go. All right, so now you're going to slowly release the trigger, and you should hear that sear click like it did. And then you will, if you've got a 3-round burst like most M4s are, you're going to flip this all the way over to this side, and it'll be a 3-round burst over here. You're going to pull the trigger, and then you got to cycle the charging handle 3 times if it's burst, and then release the trigger, and you should hear the sear reset and click. Last thing I do is I put the weapon back on safe, and you're good to go. It's been disassembled, cleaned, and reassembled with a functions check.